Welcome back, Cloud Cadets. So in this video, we're going to create a Functions app. And we're only going to have one, and we're going to treat it as a CRUD API, which it will have, this function app will have several functions inside of it. And it's a different way than deploying an API. It sometimes could be cheaper if you know that not a lot of people are going to use it. And it only has to be up when in use, opposed to a app service. In this video, we're going to test it locally with Docker. And then on the next one, we will look into deploying it to Azure instead. So for now, I'm going to just I'm going to go to SQL Server here, run it so we don't forget. I can close it. I'll right-click Applications here, add new project, and we can search for function, and we see Azure Functions here. The next, I'll name it Excuses Function App. Go next, and we can leave it as default. The general template, the first, it will generate a function for us, HTTP trigger by default. If we won't use that, we'll delete it, but I'll show you how to create it manually instead. We can leave the rest as default here, but for authorization level, we're gonna keep it as function. Anonymous doesn't require anything. Anyone can send requests to this function, while function will require that we send a function key in the header of the request. And we'll go through that later. Locally, we don't need to concern ourselves with that right now. So let's create. And here we see the general HTTP trigger that we got. I'm going to delete that. The program.cs is very simple. Then we have a few more files like hosts. We don't need to care about that right now. This will be relevant because we'll add our local connection string. This doesn't get this we git ignore. So if we had it on GitHub, and when we upload, we don't use this on Azure. But for locally, it will work fine. Let me close all of these so we can breathe a bit. And then for properties, I'm gonna, while we're here, go into launch settings and do the similar to how we did it in the web API. I'm gonna set it to 7001, just to stay consistent. All right, close that. Let's start by right-clicking on the function app. And then when we go to add here, we see this new Azure function. And here I'll call it, we can start with get all excuses. And then call function. And I'll select HTTP trigger. HTTP. And there we have it. Now, we can see this already works. Is a working sample, but ours is going to look a bit different. For example, each one should only respond to one request, and we have a REST API, so it all will be, if we look at the request here, we always want this, like the base API URL. So we're going to handle that. So first, what we're going to need, we're going to need a dependency for our repository. So in the function app, I'm going to add, let's see, a project reference. I'm going to go with EF core. Click OK. That's done. And then here we can add it. Private read only IEF core. Right. I excuse repository. We can call it excuse repository. And then we can be a bit lazy and alt enter here and then add it to the constructor. Maybe change the order. So we're also consistent with how we did it, the web API. Then enter, and I'll move this up here. And for this to be injected, we're going to need to copy from our web API the same here. We can copy this. And we can go to the program.cs for the function app. And I can add it here. Now we also want the connection strings. So I'm going to go to our app settings JSON. I'm going to copy these two. And then if I go to my local settings JSON, after values here, we can see if I type, we have the built-in connection strings. And here I'll paste those. And now this looks a bit uneven, so I'll right click here and format document. Looks a bit better. So now we have a default connection and a Docker connection. We're going to start with the Docker connection. So I'm going to copy that, close that, and I'm going to put it in here. So we know that it works, and we inject our repository. So the function app has access to what is necessary. Then we can close that. We don't need that anymore. And we can come back here, and we can start working on our function. So there are a few things that we need to do different. Let's start. First of all, we're going to use asynchronous operations. So if I had this and I said async, we're going to get a red error here because it doesn't match the contract, the implementation. So we need to change this. So for our, we're going to have task and then HTTP response data. And now we don't have the error anymore, but now we don't return the OK object result. And another thing that we need to do, I'm going to enter here inside here. I'm going to type, I can actually go here, type enter there, and then separate. Wait, remove, what did I do here? Yeah, what we do with this? Another thing we need to change, we need to update this to HTTP request data. So you can see the pattern, HTTP response data and requests. Very similar. And this get functions, we don't need the post, that's all. And also we want to change the route. The default route would be actually the name. We can actually just, we can see that later when we generate the default one. I'm going to put a comma here and then I'm going to say route. And here it's going to be excuses. And now we can perhaps do like that. It's a bit easier to read. Because now we can remove this. And now this will be very similar to how we did in our endpoints here, actually. So if I go to get all here, let's see, this is our get all. I can take the entire try catch. And then I can paste it in here. But then there's a few changes. For example, here we need underscore because it's a private variable. And here we don't send the results.ok. We actually create another type of object. It's called response. Request, that request param there, and then rate response. And here we set the status code to OK. But then I'm going to right click here so we can import this using systemnet. And I think it was a big, right? Yeah. And once we have the response object, we can write to it our data. Response write as JSON async. And here we're passing our excuses. And then we return the response to the client. Now, naturally, this results won't work here either, so we need to create another response for the error. And we'll say var error response, just to differentiate from the response name there. We call it rate response, and we can send in a 500 status code, which is internal server error. And in it, we can write the message and write as a string. Write string async. In here, we can be a bit lazy and we can delete and move this. So I can use the same error message. And that's it. That's what's done. And then we just have to return an error response. Now we would perhaps like to verify that this works. So let's change the app that we're launching to the function app. And we'll see if we have everything that we need to make it work. So when it runs, it will see all the functions in the project, and it will show us to here. So let's see. All right, I found one function. and we see we got a correct URL. And for us, I don't think we would need to change anything here, but let's go to our request file. And we see there is HTTPS, and here is the Azure. So I'm going to duplicate this, and then Control-K, Control-C to comment that out. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to rule the excuses there. So it matches. And then I'm going to send the request to see that it works. Great, it works. Connected to the SQL Server on Docker on our local. Great, that's done. Now we would like to add more functions, right? So I'll right click here. I'll create a folder called functions. What happened here? I'm going to move. Let's see. Let's move that there. And adjust namespace, yes. So it's correct. All right. And now we can be lazy. We don't need to manually create multiple Azure functions. We can just Control-C here or copy there, as you see. And then I'll paste, which you could right click here and paste Control-V, but I can keep my cursor here, press Control-V. Then I'll press F2 for rename, or you right click here and you have rename there. I'll rename this to get excuse by ID function. And if I click F2 again, I get this automatically marked, and I press Control-C. And then I can paste it in here with that name there, and for the constructor and the class. And then here I think we'll need to update those as well. And I think the namespace did not get updated by default, but I Alt-Enter, change namespace to match. So, and then we just have to change that implementation, which isn't that much different from how we did it earlier. For us, I think we need to change the route. So I'd say, and then curly, and I say ID, and we want to specify it's an int. Then what's left? We already have a GET request, so that works. Here we would like to use GET by this. So nothing really new here. All right, we also have to pass in the ID, int ID here. Move it there. This is no longer excuses, this is an excuse. Update that. I think it's nearly done. I think we first have to check if it's null. So if excuse is null, we will create a different response. So response request, create response, HTTP status code not found, right? And we can change the name so it matches. Found response, and then we can return not found response. Let's see. Otherwise, it's okay, and we can write it to the response and send it. And here we might want to update the error message. An error occurred while retrieving the excuse. All right, let's make sure everything is saved. Let's rerun it. See, now it finds two, both are GET, perfect. Let's go to our request file. And the first one, we only have 3, so this should be not found, correct, I hope. Great, and if I say 3, it finds it. Great, and that's done. We'll take a little breather here and finish the rest of the endpoints in the next video.